Welcome back to At the Table.
And if you believe that discipline is going to solve your healthy eating problems, stay tuned. We have a surprise for you. Welcome back. I'm Lynn Samita and very delighted to be back with you, Jill.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Jill Bodway. And last time we talked about how not listening to your body will not serve you. And it's actually one of the three biggest traps that people fall into when they're trying to achieve healthy eating. So today we're going to be talking about trap number 2 that busy people often fall into.
And I love this because it suits me to a T. The trap buying into the discipline model, that if you believe, as so many of us have, that if we only had a little more discipline, things would go well, is really, I think, it comes out of a desire to be efficient and, optimize our time. We really want to get the results. Unfortunately, what buying into that does is really set up constriction. It puts us in a framework that most of us rebel against.
Yes. I can really speak to this, Lynn. There were times in the past, many times actually in my life, where I adopted certain very particular, fairly strict ways of eating, of healthy eating, in an attempt to become more pure, to become healthier, to feel better. And I actually found that after a while, even though I was eating cleanly, that I wasn't feeling so good. And it was more from emotional reasons, but a feeling that some part of me was really deprived. And there was a lot of fear as well in the background that if I didn't eat the way that I had set out for myself, then I was a failure.
Yeah.
So it became really a black or white sort of way of approaching food.
Yeah, and I think so often this is why, for so many people, diets don't work. They feel restrictive. They are coming from a place of what I can't have, rather than a sense of empowerment, rather than strengthening us. And so it's really interesting to me to look at the difference between discipline and structure. And what I found in my life is structure really supports me in moving ahead. Structure enables me to get to the next step, to the next level, to the next phase of whatever I'm doing. And so I'm very interested in what structures in my life help me move in a positive direction. And discipline, for me, and maybe it's not true for everyone, but discipline is really much more coded to staying within some very narrow parameters. And as you say, then there's almost always that backlash, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I know, Lynn, that you've done a lot of studying in your career with Dr. William Glasser, who talks a lot about how we can have certain needs that can actually run our behaviors. And can you speak to what you learned from that?
Dr. Glasser is a psychiatrist. He's written many books, books on schools, on addictions, on health. He's branched into a number of different areas, but one of his landmark books is called Choice Theory, A Psychology of Personal Freedom. And what he's done in that book is really outline the fundamental genetic needs that each of us have built right into our system, and that these needs can be in conflict. And one of the needs is freedom. That human beings crave physical freedom, moving around. That's why kids, I think, often find school so difficult. They need to stay put more than what their bodies would like. Or if you're in a long airplane flight, you know immediately that your body's going to be complaining about that restriction. So our desire for freedom is we have on one hand. And then if what we're trying to do in terms of our eating, to be healthier, to feel good about ourselves, to honor our bodies, conflicts with that freedom, Now we've set inside of ourselves a tug of war or a battle. And that's always going to cost us. It's not going to serve. It will either mean you won't stay on the path you're trying to go down. So we'll start a program, a diet, or whatever, a routine, and we won't have the staying power, or we'll sabotage it. We're on the path, but then we're doing all these other things around the side. Yeah.
That's very enlightening.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then when we look at what we could do instead of adopting a more disciplined approach, if we know that that's basically setting ourselves up for failure, then in some of my exploration, and I know that you agree with me about this, that really what's needed is a shift in perception.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for myself, I find that the more that I cultivate a sense of moving towards something,
Right.
of what I'm actually creating or embracing in my life by the daily choices that I make moment to moment, then I have a much better ability to make choices that are actually in alignment with my greatest health.
So really getting that goal, that vision of how you want to be, and thinking about all the choices as moving you towards
Yes.
that really positive way of showing up.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's really like rewiring the association that I have so that I'm choosing something to move towards what I want rather than not choosing something because I am trying to avoid it and cutting it out and therefore losing it. So
Right.
it's what I'm gaining instead.
Yeah, I know
keep my
you've dealt
attention.
with that in terms of taking certain foods out of your diet. So can you give us a specific example?
Yep. So wheat is a good example. And that's a tricky one because it's so prevalent in
sure
the
is.
way that we eat here in North America. And especially in birthday cakes, times of celebration, a lot of desserts. It's very, very
Sandwiches.
common. Sandwiches. Yeah, it's really everywhere. So if I focused on that, I can't eat wheat anymore because I'm trying to cut that out and therefore I lose all of these other, times that I could normally have it. Instead, the more that I focus on, I am creating myself to be a person who has the vitality, the energy for the daily activities that I'm engaged in,
Right.
the sense of mental clarity.
Right.
That all of those things are available for me when I choose other foods. And I know the feelings that I get when I am choosing wheat. So then it becomes a much easier choice to move towards the feeling of vitality. And I will use that as my anchor to move forwards.
Yeah, it's so much more attractive and compelling to think I'm going towards vitality and feeling good and having the energy I want versus the what am I losing?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, that's the same in terms of the structure. Think of structure as really there to support you, to help you. Build in practices that will give you structure, but don't leave you feeling hemmed in and restricted.
So is there an example of structure that you have used that you could...
It sounds really corny, and I learned this from someone on TV probably, but if I want to do fitness, if I put all my fitness stuff right by the door, that's a little bit of structure that just makes it easier to pick up that bag and go.
Yeah.
And we all know that booking things into our calendar helps create structure, as well as in the kitchen. Doing things, I'm trying to eat more vegetables, more fruit, and so forth. Putting a little bit of structure in there that makes it fun and interesting and easy is what I'm talking about, rather than, as you say, focusing on what I can't have or what I don't want to eat.
Yeah. Another great structural tip, too, for people who, in the example of avoiding wheat, might be that because it's so hard if you're eating out, for example, to have wheat, and it's there in so many different items. If we put in a little bit of structure of planning in our day, and if we know that we're going to be out for lunch, that we potentially bring a lunch with us, that then we'll be able to have something that we've prepared versus relying on just whatever happens to be there.
Right.
That can be another great type of a structural
Right.
practice that we could put into our lives.
And my alternative to that, because I often don't do the pack a lunch routine, but I do think ahead and picture what I'm going to have. So rather than getting caught in the moment, I kind of pre-scan in my mind, what do I think the menu options are going to be, and what would match that? And if I twin that with how great I want to feel, and the me I'm trying to be, and the integrity that I want to develop, the honoring of my body, which is what I'm working on, that helps me move in that direction. But that's pre-selecting is a really useful piece of structure.
And Lynn, I really loved what you just said about honoring your body. That is another really key perceptual place shift that we could adopt. The more that we start to cultivate a sense of honoring or devotion even to our highest vitality, to being our best, then any sort of discipline instead is really an act of devotion.
Right.
So
Making that shift from discipline to devotion, to really loving.
Yeah, it's really about loving ourselves.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Last word?
Well, the last thing that I just wanted to mention is a quote from a woman named Sherry Hubbard that I just love. And she says that we don't lack discipline. What we lack is presence. And I've found this to be another great way to approach the problem of discipline, and to see that instead of trying to create a rigid, harsh way of being, that if I can just have the intention that in the present moment, that when I'm making a choice, to notice, is this choice actually in alignment with what I want?
Right.
So become more present, and then discipline isn't really needed. It's just about choosing what you really want to create.
I love that. We don't lack discipline, we lack presence. Because presence seems really attainable to come into the present moment. All right. Well, let's close on that note. We will be doing the third part of this series, and it's going to focus on the number one trap people fall into, especially busy people. And I'm really excited to do that one because I think it's really critical, because it's all about, do you know what you're really hungry for? We're going to explore all the different things that come under the heading of hungers. So please join us for the third part of this series. And we want to let you know that we will be doing a live webinar
on October 3rd at 7:30.
Yep. And we will be giving you lots of information about how you can sign up and join us to hear how the heck does sabotage work and what do we do about it. So we look forward to you joining us then.
Hi, it's Lynn here. Jill and I are very excited about our upcoming webinar on October the 10th, beginning at 7:30 p.m. In deciding about joining the webinar, here are some things to consider. Are you tired of the disempowering cycle of creating healthy eating goals and then acting in the opposite way? Are you frustrated with backsliding on your intentions? Do you want to feel free and empowered to make the changes you desire? In our webinar, we're going to talk about all of these questions and look more closely at how you can stop the cycle that undermines your healthy eating. This is a free online event, and you can register for it simply by leaving your name and email address below to make sure that you get all the information you need to participate. As an option to the webinar, we are also offering free live events in different locations, starting on October the 10th at West Vancouver Library, 2 to 4 p.m. October 11th, Curves Fitness Center in Kitsilano, 2:30 to 4 p.m. October 15th, Utopia Books and Gifts, Lonsdale Avenue, North Vancouver, 7 to 9 p.m. October 17th, Le Physique in False Creek, 7 to 9 p.m. And October the 18th, Present Gifts in Horseshoe Bay, 7 to 9 p.m. You must pre-register for these events even though they are free because seating is very limited. Register by calling 922-1330. Jill and I look forward to sharing with you soon, either in the webinar or in the live events.